right, Brian Norman Jr. loses to Devin Haney. Devin Haney does what um, you know, Jerron Boots Ennis was scared to do, and that was take out the boogeyman, the power puncher, of the division, Brian Norman Jr. And, obviously them taking the fight, Norman Sr. was saying they were forced into the fight. Well, obviously they seen something. They seen something in the fight. And, Devin took it to him. Devin looked strong. I mean, Mickey Bay seemed like they did a great job. I guess it had to be Mickey Bay since he was new in the corner with keeping Devin hand up. He blocked that left hook, and with Ryan Garcia, I seen in that fight, he was like walking towards Ryan and not protecting his jaw and not holding that phone. In this fight, he held the phone in range, out of range. He held the phone well. I mean, he just got back to being Devin Haney. He got back into a groove. Would we like to see him be more creative with punching? Yeah, but a lot of these guys don't have punch creativity. I mean, Boots is like amongst the young fighters. Boots and like Bam Rodriguez are in the class of their own. But Floyd, a lot of these guys mimic Floyd. A lot of these guys, they throw punches. They mimic Money Mayweather. They throw punches to get back to stay in position to defend. And a lot of times you watch guys like Hagler. You just watch some of these older guys like Hagler, Chavez. A lot of times they threw punches to be threw punches to be in position to throw more punches. And now today people are, a lot of guys are mimicking Money Mayweather. They're throwing punches and getting their hands back home. And technically that's the right way to do it. I mean, Pacquiao was another great fighter. He threw punches to be in position to throw more punches. A great offense was the best defense, a great offense, Cobra Kai. Daniel San Miyagi though was, defense to offense, but at some point you need both. And, what we like to see Devin more creative offensively. Yeah, it might become a time where he might have to throw an uppercut. But tonight, the jab, the right hand, the check hook, it hurt Norman in that second round. That's what where the knockdown started. That Norman was hurt the whole second round. It was a check hook that he threw that hurt Norman. He was hurt. I seen it even before Sergio Mora said something. And this is the best fight I ever heard Mora call, to be honest. And then I think he clipped him with a right hand that put him down. He was hurt. And his nose was busted. And credit to Brian Norman. He had never been past 10 and do it with a broken nose. And then, the nose started bleeding again. Cutman did a great job. And, Devin just was in a groove. Devin is just doing what Money Mayweather do. Use the lead hand, use the right hand, use the left hook if you need to. Mayweather stopped using the left hook so much, especially as a power punch as he used to use it because his hands. He used to use the right hand as a power punch too. And with a lot of these fighters that mimic him, they mimic like hurt hand Money Mayweather. You see with Devin, just control distance with the jab, preserve energy, get off with that right hand, get off with the check hook of the right hand if you ain't using the jab. And, if I'm Abdullah Mason, I'm probably going to see Devin Haney about that jab. If he had that jab, I mean, that dude would be virtually unbeatable. And you've seen it in a couple fights previous to this one with Abdullah Mason not using the jab. He left a lot of opportunity, get that guy out of there. And that guy Noakes left a lot of opportunity by not using the jab. But that's all Devin did. Use the jab, control Norman, control the distance, and that's it. And that's what Abdullah Mason couldn't do. You can't control if he don't knock you out, he can't control that distance. With them power shots, he got to learn to control the distance, and that's what the jab allows you to do. Allows you to control the distance. And Devin could have did so much more with the jab and with other offense, whether it's double jab, whether it was jab right hand, which he did, whether it was check hook, whether it was 1, 2, 3s, or whether it was throwing uppercuts and finding angles. Though he could have did a lot more. But credit to Norman, you had to appreciate his grit. He didn't lay down. Nose was broken. He did well in the championship rounds for the first time being there. He really thugged it out, but you could kind of see the power was fading when he started shoe shining. And he uses heavy front foot. You know what I'm saying? At some point, you got to kind of go neutral and be on balance. Devin looked stronger. His base looked a lot stronger in this particular fight. He looked stronger, looked fuller, looked like the bigger man. His punches look a lot more crisp, accurate. And what more can I say? Norman had looked good, and one of my questions was, yeah, he hadn't really beat nobody to that point, but he looked strong. And Devin and them, like I said, that bullshit. You only as good as your last fight. You don't know what could have happened in their last fight. I think what actually happened in the Ryan Garcia fight, if we being honest, I think they wasn't trying to lose the bag. That's it. That was my thing. I think they was just trying to secure the bag versus Ryan. And if he fought like that versus Ryan, Ryan can't touch him with or without pads. To be honest with you, he can't touch him. But ultimately, ultimately for Devin, at some point he might have to get more creative in there. But for Brian Norman, just working on the jab, not being so having his head hanging over his front foot. Spence do that a lot. You know what I'm saying? Not to bring him into the equation. But that's one thing I noted about Spence. He got all his weight over his front foot. All his weight over his front foot. And when you do all your weight over your front foot, you know what I'm saying? It's easy for somebody that can use angles to really use that against you. It becomes easy. So you got to remember that when you got all your weight on the front foot, you better capitalize on it, because a fighter that know what he's doing, they're gonna use that against you. But for the most part, you figure it out. But Norman could have jabbed more, could have went to the body more. But once you get clipped with a fight, when you get clipped with a shot early on and you're not experienced, you get clipped with that shot early on, you're not sure when your legs come back until they actually come back. And for the most part, Devin Haney tried to go for the kill shot. He did. He really did try to go for the kill shot. But took his time. Had to respect you had to respect you had to respect Norman, what he did. But it's gonna be lit to see his daddy, get on the internet and eat crow. I'll tell you that. It's gonna be lit. It's gonna be lit for his daddy to get in there and eat crow. People gonna want to hear from his daddy. It was a little bit different because people had the Devin and the Brian Norman thing and all that. But that's gonna be lit. People gonna be wanting to hear from the pops. And also come with the territory. When you talk that talk, and come from every great trash talker, every great shit talker, every great guy that can cap or play that doesn't. Every dog has his day. It's one day it's how you take it. No Diddy, how you taking when you losing? Hopefully they can come back and maybe his father's head is not so far in the clouds that they can get some assistance with some of the things they need to clean up as far as his balance and shifting his weight a little bit more to a center of gravity, getting that chin off the line, a little upper body movement, little stuff like that. He can come back to division not too deep. Wonder will Top Rank continue to work with him. Or they just cut ties with them. They don't have a major TV network outside of Stars. So that should be, ultimately that should be very interesting. But yeah, I wouldn't write them off. I wouldn't write them off. Just balance and working on upper body movement. Throwing the jab. Just things of that nature. I think those could be things that that they can look at. So, but ultimately, Devin, what he can do next. Well, I'm gonna speak on this, right? What Devin can do next. I mean, obviously, Conor Ben and Eddie Hearn, they just sat there and basically told y'all that they didn't want to fight. And I'm gonna talk about that in another video. But also, I'm gonna talk about that another day. Rolly already refused to fight him. Lewis Crocker and him might make sense. He's the IBF champion. And Barrios and Ryan Garcia. So if Ryan can win, then or Barrios, I think that's the next fight for him. But he already let you know what it was with we already knew what it was with we already knew what it was with you know, with you know Ryan Connor Ben and Eddie Hearn. They basically sat there and they shitted on uh you know, they shitted on him. They shitted on him. They shitted on him. And that basically that was their that was their way of saying we don't want to. Oh, this was boring. It was trash, and kind of same thing Connor Ben did with when he sat down with Shakur Stevenson. Oh, you're being boring. You in boring fights and all this type of stuff. So that was they thing. That was their thing. You know, that was their thing to get out the fight. Oh, he's boring. They know they can't box with him. So that's the new thing about it, because if you can't box with him, then it's just to sit there and down they style. So when you can't sit there and box, so that what they did after the fight was trash. Oh, that was totally that was totally trash. You know, that was totally trash. And then he was boring and it was terrible. And Turkey don't want to put the like, okay. That's crazy, bro. To me, that's crazy to sit there and shit. And that just this. I told y'all these promoters are the problem. These promoters the problem, bro. They sit there and they pussyfy these fighters. Conor Ben's a pussy, bro. Nobody want to see you fight anyway, you fucking drug cheat. I ain't watched that bullshit ass fight he had neither, man. Shit on the man's performance after that. Get out of here because you don't want to fight him. This time, life and times we living in. But hey, check out the fight reaction playlist. Thumbs up the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Hit the link tree. Find me on X, Facebook, Kick, Twitch, the 09. Appreciate the love and support. Peace.